Oh no! My mom fell down the stairs at home and got injured.
As soon as Jack pressed the call button, he spoke in a panicked voice. What?
I said, my mom got hurt. I'm gonna go to my parents' place for a while to take care of her. You're in charge of the house.
His mother? But his mother is right in front of me. I'm currently at my in-laws' house, enjoying tea with my mother-in-law. What on earth is Jack talking about? As I'm sitting there puzzled, my mother-in-law gives me a wink and puts her index finger to her lips, as if to say shoo. I nod and put my phone on speaker mode, placing it between us.
Really? Your mother got injured? Then I'll hurry over to her place right now.
I reconfirm, making sure my mother-in-law can hear me loud and clear.
Huh? No, it's fine. You two don't get along anyway, right? Leave it to me. Bye.
Perhaps not wanting to continue the conversation any longer, Jack hung up abruptly. As I sit there dumbfounded, my mother-in-law, who had been stifling her laughter, burst out laughing as soon as the call ended.
Well then, let's just see what happens, shall we?
My husband, who has completely lost interest in me, still doesn't know about the secret relationship between his mother and me. I can already picture the look of shock on his face, and I can't help but smile. My name is Emily. From the time I graduated high school until now in my 50s, I've been working as a caregiver. Jack was my high school classmate, and we got married in our late 20s. When we were newlyweds, I had one particular worry. My mother-in-law. My in-laws live nearby, so I often run into her at the supermarket or while taking out the trash. Of course, I always greet her with a smile, but she would always ignore me. My highly educated mother-in-law, who used to be a globe-trotting career woman, looked down on me, a high school graduate, and deemed me unworthy of being her son's wife. At least, that's what I had always assumed. However, I later realized that I was mistaken. One day, my mother-in-law confronted me about how I often left the house late at night. From the probing look in her eyes, I realized that she suspected me of infidelity.
You're always out and about late at night, aren't you? I feel so sorry for my son. No, it's not like that. You see, one of my elderly patients often wanders around at night, so their family calls me to help look for them. That's why I'm out so late.
When I honestly explained the situation, my mother-in-law turned red and sincerely apologized for her misunderstanding.
I'm so sorry for saying such rude things. I just assumed you were cheating on him.
Seeing her, I realized that I too had misunderstood her. When I told her the story of what inspired me to pursue a career in caregiving, she gave me a gentle smile and a kind look. Back in high school, I once helped an elderly woman with dementia who was wandering around town and took her to the police box. There, I saw the caregiver who came to pick her up speak to the elderly woman with such kindness. At that moment, I decided I wanted to become a wonderful woman like her, and that's why I chose this path.
I'm truly proud to have you as my daughter-in-law.
Realizing that my mother-in-law wasn't the type to judge others based on their education or upbringing, we now spend time together like friends, going out for lunch or having tea whenever we can. However, my troubles were far from over. About 3 years into our marriage, Jack suddenly started treating me coldly. I thought he must be tired from work, so I tried my best to stay cheerful.
Welcome home. That movie we like is on TV tonight. Wanna watch it together?
It was the movie we saw on our first date, and it had become a tradition for us to prepare popcorn and watch it together whenever it aired on TV.
I'm sick of that movie. Sorry, but I still have work to do.
Jack disappeared into his office without even making eye contact with me. One time, when I passed by his office after taking a shower, I heard laughter coming from inside. It had been a long time since I last heard Jack laugh like that. It sounds like they're having fun. I figured there must be some casual chatting even during meetings, so I tried not to think too much of it and headed to the bedroom alone. However, by turning a blind eye to these small moments of unease, the rift between Jack and I had grown so deep that it was beyond repair before I knew it. Jack used to never forget to give me flowers or gifts on our anniversary and my birthday, but now he doesn't even come home, claiming he has to work overtime. On particularly bad days, he reeks of alcohol. When I confronted him about the smell of alcohol despite his supposed overtime, he brazenly claimed that a sudden business dinner came up and clicked his tongue in annoyance. Gradually, our intimate moments in bed disappeared as well. Even when I tried to snuggle up to him, he would squirm uncomfortably and turn his back to me.
Unlike your job, I'm exhausted from using my brain at work.
Jack muttered with his back still turned. Is that what you think of my job? I take pride in my work as a caregiver. It's a rewarding job where I can be of help to others. And while I don't do it for the thanks, it does make me happy when people express their gratitude. Even so, it's not all fun and games. There are far more difficult times than easy ones, and I'm always exhausted after work. I even study in between work and housework to improve my skills. I felt both angry and hurt that he would mock my profession. But not wanting to start a fight and ruin the atmosphere at home, I bit my lip and held back. He's just tired, I'm sure he doesn't really mean it. I kept telling myself that and endured it. But despite my patience, the situation only got worse. Jack started using overtime and business trips as excuses and rarely ate at home anymore. And even when he did, he would eat mechanically without any conversation, his mind clearly elsewhere.
Hey, how's the seasoning on that fish? Should I have made it stronger?
Jack didn't respond, as if he hadn't heard me at all.
Hey, I'm talking to you.
Huh?
What?
When I repeated my question about the seasoning, he replied, whatever, as long as it's edible. He had a look of complete indifference and kept glancing at his phone, which he had placed out of my sight. Then suddenly, he stood up and claimed he got a call from work. Leaving his unfinished meal, he eagerly shut himself in his office. Jack never came out of that room, and I sighed as I looked at the more than half-eaten dish he left behind. It was an expensive fish. I had splurged on it, hoping to give him some energy since he had been working overtime a lot recently. If he wasn't going to eat it, I wish he would have told me. I wrapped the leftovers and put them in the fridge to use for my lunch the next day. The following day, Jack came home completely wasted at 2 a.m. I had reached my limit.
Hey, couldn't you at least let me know if you're gonna be late?
It's not a difficult request. A single message would suffice.
Something urgent came up at work. I'm tired, so stop nagging me.
He took off his shoes roughly and ostentatiously covered his ears with his palms.
Nagging! I just need to plan meals and my own schedule, you know.
Schedule?
You just make the same stuff all the time anyway. Who do you think pays for this nice house we live in?
I was too shocked to speak after hearing him belittle me like that, even if he was drunk. In the first place, this house was built by my mother-in-law, and Jack hasn't paid a dime for it. As for living expenses, aside from the automatic payments like utilities, I pay for everything with my own salary. He used to give me cash in the beginning, but he gradually started avoiding the subject. I bit my lip to stop myself from saying something that would hurt Jack's pride. Jack seemed to sense what I wanted to say and glared at me, furrowing his brow. His right arm moved, and I instinctively shielded myself, thinking he might hit me. But as if remembering something, he let out a ha and smirked condescendingly when I looked up.
Well, your poor parents didn't contribute a cent either.
The words that came out of his mouth were just as horrible as physical violence.
What the hell is that?
I was so angry at him for insulting my parents who raised me with love, I couldn't even form proper words. It's true that my family isn't wealthy. But when they offered to scrape together what they could, it was Jack who refused. Back then, my parents had this complicated look on their faces, a mix of gratitude and guilt.
Just being able to marry Emily is enough to make me happy.
At the time, he said that and gently put his arm around me. Watching him out of the corner of my eye, I felt proud of myself for choosing him. Leaving me dumbfounded, Jack spat out shower and went into the room. From that day on, Jack started staying at hotels more than once a week, even when he wasn't on a business trip. And of course, he still never informed me in advance. He says it can't be helped because it's their busy season, But just how long is this busy season going to last? It's been over 6 months now. As I was having breakfast alone as usual, I got a call from Jack.
Hey, I'm at the station right now. Bring me a change of underwear and a dress shirt. What? I have to stop by my patient's place before going to work today. I can't. Then get here in 10 minutes.
Completely ignoring my circumstances, Jack hung up unilaterally. Have I stopped being his wife and become his servant in his mind? I looked at the clock and it was already 8. I left my breakfast unfinished, hurriedly put the change of clothes in a paper bag, and ran to the station at full speed without even putting on makeup. When I arrived, out of breath with my hair a mess, Jack took the bag without a word of thanks. Jack pointed at the ground with an arrogant attitude and said, "Wait here," then went into the station restroom to change. I checked my phone and it was already almost 8:30. I had promised to be at my patient's house at 9. Finally done changing, Jack came out of the restroom. The shirt and underwear he had been wearing were crammed haphazardly into the paper bag he handed back to me. Jack looked at my face, clicked his tongue, and said, "At least put on some makeup." He mocked my disheveled appearance and quickly headed for the ticket gate. It's not my fault. I wanted to shout that at Jack's back. But I didn't have time to argue. I ran to my patient's house with my hair flying again. After work, when I took Jack's laundry out of the bag at home, a sweet scent wafted out. For a moment, I thought it might be the smell of the hotel soap, but it was too strong for that. I was convinced it was perfume. When I told Jack about it after he got home, he showed obvious agitation.
Oh, that. The woman next to me on the packed train had really strong perfume on.
As he blabbered on about things I didn't even ask, averting his eyes, my suspicion grew stronger. The next day, Jack came home unusually early, carrying a pink paper bag.
Actually, I've been looking for a perfume that suits you lately. That's probably why my shirt smelled like that.
Why?
It's not even my birthday.
Rather than joy, I felt more bewildered, and my brow furrowed.
What's with that? It doesn't have to be for a special occasion, does it?
Jack seemed disappointed by my reaction, threw his bag on the sofa, and sulked. A few days later, I was having tea at my mother-in-law's house on my day off when I got a call from Jack, who had left early saying he had to work. As soon as I pressed the call button, Jack spoke in a panicked voice.
It's terrible! Apparently, my mom fell down the stairs at home and got injured.
He was talking so loudly and dramatically that his voice was leaking from the phone. His mom? But his mom is literally right in front of me right now. As I sat there puzzled, my mother-in-law winked at me and put her index finger to her lips as if to say show. I put my phone on speaker mode and placed it between us.
What? Did your mom really get injured?
I reconfirmed, making sure my mother-in-law could clearly hear what Jack had just said.
That's what I'm telling you.
Then I'll hurry over to your parents' place right now. When I said that, Jack started talking in a flustered voice.
Huh. You two don't get along anyway, right? Leave my mom to me. I'm gonna go stay with them for a while to take care of her. If it's caregiving, I'm more qualified. I said it's fine. Bye.
Perhaps not wanting to continue the conversation any longer, Jack hung up abruptly. My mother-in-law, who had been holding back her laughter, burst out laughing as soon as the call ended.
Well then, let's just see what happens, shall we?
If that's what my mother-in-law says, then I decided to wait and see for a while too. A week later, Jack came home once to pick up a change of clothes and other belongings.
Hey, how's your mom doing?
I asked Jack, pretending to be genuinely concerned and standing close to him.
Oh, her surgery was successful and she can be discharged soon.
I mercilessly pointed out the contradiction in Jack's words.
Huh? Didn't you say she was recovering at home?
Jack made an oops face and started making excuses in a hurry.
Oh, that! Right, she was rushed to the hospital for an emergency surgery, and then she fell and sprained her ankle while doing physical therapy at the hospital. What? An emergency? I thought you said she was injured.
I continued to press him. Gradually, beads of sweat started to appear on Jack's face. Recently, he had been in full authoritarian husband mode, but now he looked pathetically flustered. I couldn't help but laugh. Suddenly, the door to the next room opened with force.
Why don't you tell me more about that story?
My mother-in-law, who had been waiting in the next room, appeared with her arms crossed. At her sudden appearance, Jack seemed at a loss for words, opening and closing his mouth like an idiot.
What? I thought you two didn't get along.
It seems Jack still thinks my mother-in-law and I are on bad terms. Well, it's understandable. For the past few years, there hasn't been any real conversation between Jack and me. I tried to tell him many times that my mother-in-law's misunderstanding of me had been cleared up and we now have a friendship. It was Jack who looked down on me and avoided conversation. As if he thought of something, Jack let out an awe.
Mom must have been Emily mishearing things. It was my senior colleague who slipped and fell at home and got seriously injured.
What a pathetic excuse, unbecoming of an adult member of society. I gave Jack a cold stare. Then, I calmly took out my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen.
Leave my mom to me. I'm gonna go stay with them for a while to take care of her. Bye.
I had recorded the call from Jack from the middle onwards a week ago. I can clearly hear Mom though. Seeing Jack's face turn pale as his big lie was exposed, my mother-in-law and I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing again. Then, my mother-in-law suddenly stopped smiling, furrowed her brow, and took a deep breath with a serious expression.
Whose mother have you been taking care of?
Jack was so startled by his mother's thundering voice that he collapsed to the floor. Come to think of it, Jack had mentioned he could count on one hand the number of times his mother had gotten angry at him. Looking up at his mother with tears in his eyes, Jack looked like a small child.
What the hell? Mom, you hated Emily too, didn't you? You looked down on her caregiver job, didn't you?
Jack tried to shift the blame to his mother in a voice on the verge of crying.
That's because I saw Emily leaving the house in the middle of the night and assumed she was cheating. I would never look down on caregiving work.
Jack's mother started talking about the past connection between her and Emily that Jack still didn't know about. The elderly woman I had taken to the police box in high school, which inspired me to pursue a career in caregiving, was actually Jack's grandmother, his mother's mother. When I went to Jack's parents' house to introduce myself before our marriage, his grandmother had already passed away, so I didn't realize.
What?
Jack let out a dumbfounded voice.
I'm nothing but grateful to Emily. I respect her for being so kind-hearted. I would never hate or belittle her.
Jack, who had been meek until a moment ago, suddenly raised his head and glared at me. Damn it. I only married you because I thought I could eventually dump my parents' care on you since you're a caregiver. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen a poor high school graduate like you. Saying that, Jack threw the socks and ties he had packed for a change of clothes at me one by one. His behavior was so childish that I was less angry and more dumbfounded. Jack's mother stepped between us as if to shield me.
Don't judge people by their upbringing.
I stopped Jack's mother, who looked like she was about to raise her hand against Jack, and signaled with my eyes as if to check the time.
It's almost time.
Jack, this isn't over yet.
That's right, let's get to the main point.
Jack had completely given up and clicked his tongue, saying, "There's more?" Just then, as if on cue, the intercom rang. Hello. It's Flower Garden. A lively female voice was heard, and when I opened the front door, a woman who looked to be in her early 20s was standing there holding a bouquet. I invited her to come inside. Although bewildered, the woman followed me in and let out a surprised voice when she saw Jack slumped on the floor.
Huh? Jack.
As soon as Jack saw the woman's face, he let out a voice like a crushed frog. The flower shop woman looked back and forth between Jack and us with a suspicious expression.
What's going on?
When the woman asked Jack about the current situation, he screamed, "I don't know," and fled into the next room, locking the door with a click.
I don't know you. You've got the wrong person. We're strangers.
From his clumsy speech, it was clear that Jack was quite flustered.
What? It's me, Grace. We were together until this morning, weren't we? Must be misunderstanding.
The woman who introduced herself as Grace called out to Jack through the door, but he had already clammed up. He was probably curled up with his ears covered, waiting for things to blow over. I was simply dumbfounded that my husband was such a pathetic man. I no longer felt anger or sadness.
What's the meaning of this? He's definitely my fiancé. What have you done to him?
Grace's anger was directed not at Jack, who had run away, but at me and his mother. In fact, we had known about Grace beforehand. The day after Jack's fake phone call saying his mother was injured, his mother and I were convinced of his infidelity and went to a private detective agency. Evidence of Jack's cheating was easily found, and the woman was an employee at the flower shop where he had bought me flowers for my birthday. The detective said there was a possibility that Grace didn't know Jack was married. Apparently, Grace had happily told her coworkers, "I'm getting married soon." His mother and I thought about how we could get Grace to believe that Jack was married and how we could corner Jack, who was good at making excuses. Then yesterday, Jack contacted me saying he was coming to pick up his things tomorrow and to prepare a change of clothes. I immediately contacted his mother and hurried to order a bouquet from the flower shop where Grace worked.
Grace, I'm sorry to get you involved in this. I'm Jack's wife, Emily.
I apologized to Grace for involving her in our plan and politely told her that I was Jack's wife to the best of my ability.
Huh? Don't lie to me. I'm going to marry him. Please don't interfere.
Seeing that Grace didn't believe I was Jack's wife, I thought we were right to carry out this plan. Words alone probably wouldn't have convinced her that Jack was married. I showed Grace the wedding album I had prepared on the table. Grace gasped and gingerly picked up the album, slowly turning the pages. After returning the album to me, Grace bit her lip hard and clenched her fists, looking like she was holding back tears. The next moment, Grace apologized deeply to me.
I'm so sorry, even though I didn't know.
Seeing Grace apologize profusely, I felt a surge of intense anger towards Jack again for deceiving such an honest and good girl.
Hey Jack! Come out here!
Grace yelled at the room Jack had fled into and pounded on the door with her clenched fist. Even in this situation, Jack was still keeping his mouth shut. Grace had even introduced Jack to her father as her future husband. When Grace's father heard the name of the company Jack worked for, he was very pleased, saying it was a trustworthy company.
My father is the president of one of that company's business partners. You've probably heard of the trading company.
The trading company was a well-known major corporation. As soon as Grace said the company name, the door to the room Jack had fled into opened with such force it nearly broke.
What did you say? I never heard about that.
Jack came flying out of the room, his face pale as a ghost. He tripped on the carpet, fell, and crawled on the floor to cling to Grace's feet.
Grace, I'm sorry.
Jack took both of Grace's hands and spouted off sappy lines like "I love you" and "You're the only one for me."
When I met you, I was planning to divorce this woman. It's true.
Jack jerked his chin in my direction. I knew he meant me by this woman.
What's that? I can't believe it. I'm glad I didn't end up marrying a piece of trash like you.
Grace turned back to me.
Emily, thank you for telling me.
Grace, who had gotten angry on my behalf, brushed off Jack's hands as if shaking off something dirty.
I see. Okay. I really did want to marry Grace, but if she says no, then we'll break up.
Even in the worst situation, Jack looked a bit relieved, probably thinking he could end it here. What a cowardly man through and through. However, Grace's next words would plunge Jack into the depths of despair.
Huh? You think it's over? I won't forgive you for deceiving not only me but my father too. I'm suing you for damages. No way!
Jack crawled on the ground and this time clung to his mother's feet.
Help me! Mom!
Just like Grace, his mother shook off the clinging Jack.
Just because I was a single parent, I spoiled you too much. Hurting such a young girl and kind Emily. This time, I really need to teach you a lesson. No way! I don't have the money to pay damages.
Even though Jack is highly paid, he probably has little to no savings. Recently, I've been getting frequent usage statements and payment reminders from multiple consumer loan companies addressed to him. I had noticed Jack's spending had gotten out of control in the past few years. He was ordering expensive custom-made suits, buying clothes from overseas boutiques, and frequently going to the hair salon. He was unusually concerned about his appearance. Thinking back, he probably wanted to impress young Grace. Grace, whom he had gone to such lengths to date, glared at Jack with hatred, her shoulders trembling with anger.
I'll contact you through my lawyer from now on. Never show your face in front of me again.
Grace told Jack in a firm tone, nodded to me, and left. After seeing her off, his mother and I turned back to Jack. When she called his name, Jack, he flinched.
You're a lot like your father. Both in looks and in what you've done.
Apparently, Jack's father, his mother's husband, had also cheated on her with a younger woman, had a secret child, and eventually abandoned his family. His mother and I left Jack, who seemed like a soulless shell. No longer able to bear living under the same roof as Jack, I decided to stay at his mother's house for a while. The next day, I got a call from Grace. She said my cell phone number was written on the order form for the bouquet, and she called me after seeing it. Grace's father had already called Jack's company to protest. The executives of both companies had desperately persuaded Grace's father, who had even threatened to cancel their business partnership. Although they avoided the cancellation of the deal, Jack was demoted to a subsidiary in a rural area of Southeast Asia, taking responsibility for ruining the trust and reputation he had built up at the company over many years. Grace also properly sued Jack and won the damages she had hoped for.
Emily, I'm so sorry for everything. You're the only one for me after all. Please come with me.
Drowning in debt from the damages in credit card loans, and now having to go to a rural area overseas alone, Jack grabbed my hand with snot running down his nose and begged me to get back together with him.
I have my caregiving job, so I can't go with you. Make sure you work hard and pay Grace the damages.
I placed the divorce papers on the table, packed my bags, and left the house. I didn't want to cause trouble for his mother, and even without that money, I can live comfortably on my own earnings. A few months later, I passed the certified care worker exam. Jack's mother, who is no longer my mother-in-law, was as happy for me as if it were her own accomplishment. She and I still enjoy having tea and chatting whenever we can find time between work. Our bond has deepened into a friendship that goes beyond our former in-law relationship. Although we sometimes think back on the past, we don't dwell on it. We both look forward and enjoy our new lives. My grandson, David, experienced his first winter this year. The weather report mentioned that it was a record cold day. I couldn't help but worry about David and his mother, Yvonne. I hope they haven't fallen ill due to the cold. That night, I sent a message to Yvonne on my smartphone, asking, "Are you and the baby okay? Not catching a cold?" However, despite sending it 2 or 3 times, there was no reply, not even a read receipt. She's always been so responsible, I hope she's not overdoing it. After waiting another hour, I tried calling but to no avail. This is no small matter. Worried something serious had happened, I quickly put on my thick jumper and rushed out to drive to my son's family apartment. There was no response when I rang the intercom, and fearing the worst, that Yvonne had collapsed inside, I had the building manager open the door. The apartment was dark, with only the faint light from the street lamps seeping in. Groping along the wall, I searched for the light switch, relying on my memory. I fumbled for the light switch, but, even after trying several times, the lights wouldn't turn on. What's going on here? I thought, feeling a mix of anxiety and irritation. With no other option, I used my smartphone's flashlight to look around. Yvonne? Are you there? Could it be that they are just out? Just as I was about to leave, I thought I heard a baby's cry from the bedroom. Yvonne? Are you there? I quickly headed to the bedroom.
Yvonne!
There, I found Yvonne, shivering from the cold but desperately wrapping newborn David in a sheet to keep him warm.
What happened?
To my shock, Yvonne's once long and proud black hair was now chopped off, almost completely shaved.
This is terrible. What happened here?
My name is Mary Smith. I'm 61 years old. I've worked as a hairstylist for many years, running a salon out of my home. Chatting casually with my regulars during their appointments has always been the highlight of my day. The salon was originally started by my husband and me. However, he passed away from cancer when he was young. Not long after our son, Harry, was born. Despite the challenges, I raised Harry single-handedly. But Harry didn't make it easy. He often skipped school and got into trouble when he did attend. After graduating high school, he didn't continue his education and instead spent his days hanging out in town. I often wondered if it was a sense of inferiority from not having a father around. Or maybe it's because I wasn't a good enough mother. I always worried about Harry's future, never finding an answer. So, when Harry suddenly said one day, "I want to be a hairstylist," I was so surprised I pinched my cheek, thinking I was dreaming. "What's gotten into you? Hairstylists are popular with the ladies, right?" Harry replied with a smirk. "Guess kids do grow up watching their parents, huh?" Regardless of the reason, I decided to take a positive view of my son showing interest in his future for the first time. Harry successfully graduated from cosmetology school and started working as an apprentice at a senior's salon. That's where he met Yvonne, who would later become his wife. Harry was smitten with her at first sight and, after a strong pursuit, announced to me with a confident smile, "I've decided to marry this girl," introducing me to Yvonne.
Nice to meet you. I'm Yvonne. You are a hairstylist too, right? I look forward to learning from you.
Yvonne, with her long black hair and bright smile, was a wonderful woman.
Likewise, I look forward to that.
I replied, instantly liking her. A year after their marriage, Harry expressed his desire to start his own salon. Though he hadn't been an apprentice for long, he seemed to have gained a lot of confidence as a hairstylist.
I want to have my own place and prove my skills.
Honestly, I was a bit worried. I knew from my experience that it's not easy for a newcomer to make it on their own in this industry. But I couldn't ignore the earnest look in Harry's eyes as he talked about his dream. "How much do you have saved up?" He showed me his bank book with a troubled look and a sigh. Despite having a steady income, he was spending just as much as he earned. With this pattern, he was far from having enough to start his own business. Harry had been squandering most of his earnings on leisure. Perhaps I should have advised him to give up then. But I smiled and said, "Don't worry about the money," indulging his whim. Maybe it was my way of making up for the loneliness of growing up without a father. Truth be told, I hadn't touched the life insurance money left by my late husband. "It's for Harry. You'd forgive me, right?" I whispered to my husband's portrait. One of my regulars was knowledgeable in real estate, so I consulted with her.
That place would be perfect.
It was a property that had been used as a barbershop until half a year ago, but the owner had retired due to old age. The location wasn't bad, and she thought it might be just right for Harry's new start. During the renovation, one of my regulars said, "Use my husband, he just lazes around the house on his days off anyway." Another chimed in, "My son's studying architecture in college and is home for the summer break. He can help out too, get some hands-on experience." Thanks to their help, the construction went smoothly. Once we got the health department's approval, the salon opened in no time.
I never imagined I could set up my own business so quickly.
You should thank everyone. It's not something you could have done alone. I know. I'm grateful to you, Mom. Then, I handed Harry the bank book containing the remainder of his father's inheritance. The purchase and renovation costs were lower than expected, so there was still more than half left.
This is a gift from your father to you. Use it wisely for business expenses, and don't you dare waste it.
Yeah. I'm not a kid, I get it. Harry said, chuckling in annoyance.
Don't worry. I'll keep a close eye on Harry to make sure he doesn't spend the money foolishly.
Yvonne said with a bright smile. Her words made me laugh. With Yvonne's help, I didn't need to worry about interfering any further. I optimistically decided to watch over their business from a distance. But soon, I realized my optimism was misplaced. Yvonne occasionally visited my salon to update me on their progress, and each time, her expression grew more somber. 3 months after Harry's salon opened, she confided. Harry's not putting his heart into the work.
What? Harry? Why?
He was so enthusiastic at first, sure that his skills would bring in customers. But within a month, he stopped smiling and began treating customers coldly. As a result, our reputation has plummeted, and customers have stopped coming. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Harry had wanted his own salon so badly. What had changed in such a short time? Harry thought that being a good hairstylist was all it took, but running a salon is more than that. Yvonne sighed. Indeed, she was right. Business doesn't work just the quality of your work. Customer service plays a huge role in business. It seemed Harry was missing that fundamental understanding. So, what's Harry doing now? He's frustrated about the lack of customers and spends his days drinking. If he doesn't get his act together, we'll lose even more clients. Right now, I'm handling the customers we do have, but if our reputation keeps dropping, the business will only get worse. Yvonne explained, looking like she was on the verge of tears. I felt the same way. All right, I'll have a serious talk with him next time I see him.
Thank you so much,
Yvonne said, bowing deeply before brushing back her long black hair.
Your hair is always so stunning,
I commented, trying to lighten the mood. I started growing it out in middle school, she said proudly. Been that long? Any particular reason? Are you familiar with hair donation? Yvonne looked at me earnestly. Hair donation? I think I heard about it at a hairstylist's meeting, but I don't know much about it. Yvonne's eyes sparkled as she explained.
It's about making wigs from real hair for children who've lost their hair due to congenital diseases, illness, or accidents. I've been growing my hair to donate to organizations involved in this. Isn't it wonderful to be able to help someone? I read an article about an actress who was doing it, and I thought maybe I could do that too. Wow. That's really admirable, especially for someone as young as you,
I said, overwhelmed by Yvonne's passion. 6 months into her marriage with Harry, Yvonne got pregnant. She's always been so conscientious, always pushing herself too hard when I'm not looking.
Yvonne, this is the most crucial time. You really shouldn't overdo it,
I repeatedly warned her. Every time, she'd just lightly laugh and say, don't worry. I'm taking it easy, consulting with the baby in my belly. But in reality, Yvonne worked at the salon right up until the last month of her pregnancy, supporting the family while Harry's attitude worsened. What is he even thinking? Every time Yvonne updated me, I felt my own shortcomings as a mother. One day, I finished work early and decided to check on their salon. I ran into Harry just as he was about to leave. Where are you going? Out for a drink. There won't be any more customers today anyway, he said nonchalantly, laughing off his situation. The lack of customers had become normal for Harry, and he wasn't even trying to improve things anymore. You're about to become a father, you know. Harry just waved his hand dismissively and hopped on his motorcycle.
We're not done talking. Think about Yvonne for once.
Yeah. I'll do that when I feel like it. He laughed and sped off. Inside the salon, Yvonne was cleaning the floor. Today, we managed to get just one customer, she said, smiling brightly despite looking exhausted.
Are you eating properly? You need to get enough nutrition.
Don't worry about me.
It's not just about you. It's for the baby.
I said sternly, making sure she understood the gravity of the situation. Yvonne teared up a bit and thanked me. At times like this, the father should be there to support her. I wanted to shout at Harry, who was nowhere to be found. Yvonne told me the salon wasn't doing well. And Harry was spending money recklessly every night. Giving that bank book to Harry was a mistake. I regretted my decision. Yvonne, despite being busy, never neglected her hair care. Gently stroking her belly, she said, "I want to teach my child the joy of helping others." That's when I realized I wanted to support her. Since my son wasn't of much help, I decided to assist Yvonne at their apartment. "I'm always sorry to trouble you."
Don't worry about it, just focus on the baby.
It was my fault for not raising my son right. Because of that, Yvonne was suffering. Perhaps it was my way of atoning for my sins, at least. At the end of summer, Yvonne went into labor earlier than expected and was rushed to the hospital. Harry was nowhere to be found, unreachable. I kept sending him messages, but there were no replies, not even read receipts.
What on earth is he doing at a time like this?
Yvonne's parents had passed away, so I was the only one who could be there for her.
Don't worry, Yvonne, I'm here.
I kept encouraging her as she bravely faced childbirth. After a long and difficult labor, I was overwhelmed by the sound of the baby's cries.
He's born. You did it, Yvonne.
I was moved to tears, but Harry, who should have been there, never showed up. My grandson, David, was experiencing his first winter. The weather report said it was a record cold day. No wonder it was so chilly that I had trouble getting out of bed. My first thoughts were of Yvonne and newborn David. I hoped they weren't affected by the cold. Worried, I sent a message to Yvonne that night.
Are you and the baby okay? Haven't caught a cold?
But even after sending 2 or 3 messages, there was no response, not even a read receipt. I was concerned that Yvonne might be too ill to move. She's always been so responsible. I hope she's not overdoing it. After waiting another hour, I tried calling again, but the result was the same.
Something's not right.
Without a second thought, I put on my thick jumper and rushed out to their apartment. When I arrived, the place was engulfed in darkness. It's not uncommon for families to travel abroad during the holidays, but I hadn't heard anything about a trip from Yvonne and Harry, and they likely couldn't afford it anyway. I rang the intercom, but there was no response. Fearing Yvonne might have collapsed, I immediately asked the building manager to open the door. "I'll wait outside. Please let me know if there's anything," I told the manager before stepping inside. The apartment was dark, the only light coming from the street lamps outside. I remembered the light switch was right by the entrance. Relying on my memory, I groped for the light switch on the wall. But no matter how many times I flipped it on and off, the lights didn't respond at all. What's going on here? I thought, feeling a mixture of anxiety and irritation. With no other option, I used my smartphone's flashlight to illuminate the room as I stepped inside. "Yvonne, are you here?" I called out in the living room, but there was no answer. Maybe they had just gone out. Just as I was about to leave, I thought I heard a faint cry of a baby from the bedroom. "Yvonne? Are you in there?" I quickly headed toward the sound.
Yvonne!
There was Yvonne, shivering from the cold, desperately wrapping newborn David in a sheet to keep him warm.
What happened here?
When I shone the light on her, I was shocked to see that her once long, proud black hair had been roughly cut off, almost to the scalp. Her eyes, red and swollen from crying, looked at me helplessly. "This is terrible. How did this happen?" I took off my jumper and draped it over Yvonne.
It's okay now. Just tell me what happened, as much as you can.
Yvonne began to speak slowly. She said that Harry had continued his daily escapades even after David was born. Eventually, they couldn't pay the electric bill anymore, and Yvonne, unable to tolerate it any longer, scolded Harry. She had just wanted him to be more responsible as a father. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. In a fit of rage, Harry grabbed a pair of practice hair cutting scissors and started cutting off Yvonne's hair. At first, Yvonne tried to resist, saying stop it. But fearing any further resistance might accidentally harm David, she stopped resisting. Harry laughed mockingly, saying, "Now you won't be able to show your face in public." I was speechless at my son's cruel actions.
Why didn't you tell me it had gotten this bad?
I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Yvonne apologized, blaming herself again.
No, Yvonne, it's not your fault. You're not the one to blame here. It's Harry. You did nothing wrong.
I knew Yvonne hadn't confided in me because she didn't want to worry me. I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. The whole situation was a result of my overindulgence in raising Harry. My heart burned with shame and anger at my own failings and my son's inability to empathize with others. Taking a deep breath, I called Harry.
Hey, Mom. Long time no talk. What's up, calling all of a sudden?
Just wanted to hear your voice. How's everything over there? Are Yvonne and David doing okay?
Of course, everyone's fine and doing well.
I've been calling home, but no one's picking up. Where are you now? There was a brief pause in his voice, as if he was concocting an excuse.
Actually, we're a family of 3 in Hawaii. We'll be back next week.
Hawaii, huh? That sounds nice. I responded, though I knew he was blatantly lying to me. What had I been doing all these years, taking care of Harry? After losing my husband at a young age, I worked non-stop as a hairstylist. It was all to raise Harry into a respectable person. When he expressed a desire to become an independent hairstylist, I fulfilled his wish without hesitation. Yet, Harry carelessly squandered the inheritance his father left, using it for his own pleasures. And even treating his wife and child cruelly. My expectations for Harry turned into profound disappointment.
What would you like as a souvenir? I'll bring you something nice.
Anything's fine. You're coming back next week, right? Safe and sound. Hey, Mom? You sound a bit off. Is something wrong? Mom? Harry seemed to sense something, but I ended the call without responding. I informed the building manager waiting outside of my plans and decided to take Yvonne and David back to my house. Then, I started making calls to every place I could think of. A week later, Harry called me, cheerfully announcing that he had just landed at the airport.
I'm back, Mom. And I've got souvenirs for you,
he said, pretending to be the caring son. But my heart was no longer deceived by his act. That's nice to hear. I replied in a flat tone, though Harry didn't seem to notice anything unusual. About an hour later, a taxi pulled up in front of the apartment. Harry, clearly having enjoyed his solo trip to Hawaii, with distinct tan lines from sunglasses around his eyes, unloaded a bunch of luggage from the trunk. He took out his keys, expecting to enter the apartment where his wife and son should be waiting. He must have thought that once he inserted and turned the key, the door would open immediately. However, no matter how many times he tried, the key wouldn't fit the lock.
What's going on here?
He exclaimed in frustration. I approached him quietly from behind and asked with a smile, "Did you enjoy your trip to Hawaii?" though my heart was boiling with anger.
Mom, you're here?
Harry said, relieved to see me, misunderstanding the situation. Listen, Mom. I just got back and tried to enter the house, but the key won't fit. It must be Yvonne's prank, punishing me for going on a trip alone. He tried to paint himself as the victim, blaming Yvonne. Leaving Yvonne, who just gave birth, and newborn David behind, what were you doing? I told you, I was in Hawaii with my family. Didn't you just say you went on the trip alone? I pointed out the contradiction. Harry was at a loss for words.
You really had the nerve to lie about taking a family trip to Hawaii? Yvonne was here, with the electricity cut off, shivering in the cold, holding David close to protect him. And to think, she cherished her long hair, and you just cut it off mercilessly. Don't you feel any remorse as a human being?
I guess I messed up there. But right now, I just want to get inside the house. It's freezing in Japan. Harry replied, rubbing his arms theatrically, showing no sign of remorse. The cold Yvonne and David endured is nothing compared to this. Plus, you no longer have a home here. I've already cancelled the lease on the apartment. It's time you find your own place to live.
Cancelled the lease? Why would you do something like that without asking me?
Harry protested, suddenly panicking. But the apartment was leased under my name, after all. I couldn't just stand outside and continue this conversation, so I took Harry to a nearby coffee shop to talk further. Harry sipped his coffee silently, probably not even tasting it. He kept glancing between me and his coffee with a pale face.
You were so strapped for cash that you couldn't pay the electric bill, yet you managed to go to Hawaii?
That's... Harry grimaced and finally began to spill his selfish reasoning. He admitted that right from the start of his business, he was showing off to friends and women he picked up at the salon, spending his father's inheritance on his antics. He knew such spending would quickly deplete any fortune. But after getting a taste of the power of money, he continued his lavish lifestyle even after the inheritance ran out, racking up debts to buy gifts and take trips.
You're quite the big spender, aren't you? Especially for a failing business.
Don't worry. I'm a professional hairstylist. Once I get serious, clients will come flooding in, and I'll be able to support my family. Harry replied with unfounded confidence. I looked at him coldly. Your salon? I've already sold it. All the equipment too. It's too late to get anything back. I shattered his baseless confidence.
That's a lie. Why would you do something like that?
Harry's face turned red as he slammed his hand on the table.
Oh? You were planning to continue with the salon? I thought you had abandoned it since you left everything to Yvonne. Besides, I bought the building and land in my name.
You have no right to complain now.
But I was just trying to attract customers. I had it all planned out.
Harry's eyes looked like those of a child about to burst into tears. If you're so confident in your skills, you should be able to start over from scratch. I said coldly, then left the coffee shop after placing money for the coffee on the table. A month passed. Yvonne and I avoided any contact with Harry, but unpleasant rumors inevitably reached my ears. After I pushed him away, Harry apparently ran to his friends begging for money. But they were the kind who gathered around him for his money. Naturally, nobody was willing to help a financially drained Harry. He even got reported to the police for stalking some of the women he picked up at his salon. Although he only received a stern warning from the police, the lack of support from his acquaintances hit him hard, and he completely disappeared from our lives. He's probably living alone now, in fear of harsh debt collectors. All this is the consequence of his own actions. My anger towards Harry isn't just about his reckless spending. What's unforgivable is how he neglected Yvonne and David, pushing them into hardship. And above all, cutting off Yvonne's long hair, which she had grown out for years for a noble cause. Thereby potentially robbing unknown children of a brighter future. As a fellow hairstylist, I could never forgive Harry's actions. It will take a long time for Harry to truly understand the emotional pain Yvonne has endured. Yvonne herself never speaks of her hurt, but it's clear she's not unscathed. She appears to be keeping her feelings bottled up, probably not wanting to worry me. Wanting to do something to help, I reached out to my hairstylist friends and had a special wig made for Yvonne.
It won't make up for my son's wrongs, but please use this. Thank you, Mom.
Yvonne said with a smile, though tears were streaming down her cheeks. Using my aching back as an excuse, I asked Yvonne to help out at the salon. She threw herself into the work, seemingly trying to forget her emotional scars.
Hello, David.
A regular greeted, and David in his cradle burst into giggles. Now, some customers even come to the salon just to see him. He's like a little mascot, a baby that brings in good fortune. Yvonne, regaining her strength both physically and emotionally, has started the process of divorcing Harry.
Seeing Yvonne's smile makes us all feel like we've shed 20 years.
But it's true, Yvonne and David have brightened up the salon considerably. Attracted by Yvonne's cheerful atmosphere, more and more mothers with young children have become regulars.
Let's have a great day today. Hi, how are you? Now, the salon is filled with smiles again. In a quiet corner, David is peacefully sleeping, his cute little snores filling the air. Where are you now, when our daughter has been rushed to the hospital with serious injuries?
Panicking after receiving a call from the hospital while on a business trip, I contacted my husband. Our 5-year-old daughter had happily talked about having a picnic in the park with Daddy over the phone. And now, she had fallen from high playground equipment in the park and was unconscious.
Just wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a business meeting at the office.
On the other end of the phone, my husband also started to panic for some reason. Our conversation was not making sense, and both of us were confused. In the flow of the conversation, my husband mentioned a certain person's name. As soon as I heard it, the blood drained from my face. Since we both worked, our daughter, Karen, went to daycare. Despite our busy lives with work, housework, and childcare, we enjoyed our life as a family of 3, cooperating with each other. My in-laws were nice people and adored our daughter. Except for one person. Her name was Sophia, 3 years younger than me, living at her parents' house while working a temp job. So, when we visited my husband's parents' house, we often saw her.
Shall we head back? We'll come to visit again. Hey, Karen, say bye to Sophia.
Bye, Sophia. As we were leaving, Karen only glanced at my smiling sister-in-law before quickly hiding behind me.
Sorry, she's a bit shy. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it.
Even if my daughter behaved rudely, Sophia always brushed it off like this. But that was only in front of my husband or parents. Afterwards, she smiled only at my husband, saying, "Come visit again, Hugo." She didn't even glance my way as I apologized. The last Hugo sounded oddly emphasized, or is it just me overthinking? Actually, Sophia and I attended the same university. However, we didn't know each other during our student days, and I don't know much about her from that time. One thing is clear, she doesn't seem to like me much. Even this time, if my husband hadn't been there, she would have said something like, "Can't even greet properly at her age," with a hint of sarcasm. Sophia behaves normally towards me and my daughter in front of my husband or parents. But the treatment we get when we're alone with her is cold. This was evident when my daughter had a fever and was suddenly called from daycare, and I asked my mother-in-law to pick her up.
You asked our parents to pick her up again? It's a nuisance if she passes on her cold or something.
I'm sorry. I had an unavoidable meeting.
Yeah, there it is. Think everything's excused if it's for work? My mom's not young anymore, don't overburden her, okay? I'm not free either.
Indeed, we did rely on my in-laws for our daughter, but we always tried to keep it to a minimum and properly thanked them afterwards. And I've never inconvenienced Sophia, at least.
Oh, sorry. Compared to a full-time working mom with a kid, me and my retired parents must seem pretty free to you, huh?
Sophia sneered, looking at me with a twisted mouth. Nobody said that. Because she always behaved this way only in front of me and my daughter, Karen became wary of Sophia. I suppose she didn't find that amusing. It's natural to have people you don't get along with, and for me and my daughter, that was Sophia. I've tried to keep my distance from Sophia as much as possible, continuing the family relationship without causing trouble. I didn't want to complain to my husband or in-laws about Sophia and risk her bearing a grudge. Considering that, the daily sarcasm seemed trivial. That was until I had to go on a business trip out of state for 5 days due to work. During this period, my husband was supposed to take care of our daughter. My in-laws were away on a trip, so it was tough for my husband, but he was eager, saying he'd go through it. True to his word, he managed the hectic weekdays, and tomorrow was the last day of my trip. I was on the phone with Karen, who had just returned from daycare.
What are you gonna do tomorrow? Guess what? Daddy and I are gonna have a picnic at the big park.
Over the phone, I could hear my daughter excitedly talking about what she was going to do tomorrow.
We'll eat lunch and I want to do the obstacle course too. That sounds fun, honey. Mama will be back tomorrow night. Just make sure you do the obstacle course with Daddy, it can be dangerous.
After hearing my daughter's energetic reply, I ended the call. Karen looked so happy. Hugo must have been doing a great job. I decided to make my husband's favorite dishes when I got back. I thought about playing a lot with my daughter, considering she might have felt lonely. Little did I know, something like that was going to happen. I couldn't have imagined it at the time. It was the afternoon of the next day, as I was about to finish my last task at work. A colleague, with a grave look on their face, passed me a phone call. Rushing to answer, the caller was from the general hospital in our area. Your daughter has been injured and brought in by ambulance. She's unconscious, please come immediately, they told me.
What do you mean? Where's my husband?
Confused and struggling to find words, I learned that there were no guardians at the scene of Karen's accident. A nearby parent and child had called for an ambulance. My contact information was in my daughter's belongings, so the hospital had called me. Where could Hugo have gone? I tried to contact my husband immediately. However, no matter how many times I called, he didn't answer. After explaining the situation to my boss, they told me, "Don't worry about work, go to your daughter right away." Grateful for their understanding, I hurriedly left work for the hospital. On the way back, I kept calling my husband and finally got through.
What's happening? Why are you so frantic? There's no time for that. Karen is injured and in the hospital. Where are you and what are you doing?
His voice was too calm through the phone, which made me raise my voice without realizing.
How could this happen while you were supposed to be with her? Just wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a business meeting at the office. What?
His unexpected reply only added to my confusion. It was a holiday today, and he was supposed to be spending it with our daughter.
You're working? What are you talking about? You said you were going to the park with Karen today. But didn't Sophia contact you?
Hearing that name made me freeze on the spot.
Why would Sophia be involved?
Barely managing to utter those words, my husband began to realize the gravity of the situation. Regaining a bit of composure, I explained our daughter's condition and heard the full story from him. A little after our call ended yesterday. While preparing dinner, he received a call from his boss. Apparently, a big deal came through, and you're the only one who can handle it, he was told and couldn't refuse. Desperate, he tried contacting his parents, but of course, they couldn't return from their trip immediately. That's when Sophia called, seemingly perfect timing.
I heard from Mom and Dad. You got caught up with work all of a sudden? I'm free tomorrow, so I can take care of Karen.
Seemingly concerned for my troubled husband, my in-laws must have informed Sophia.
A picnic at the park? Then, I'll have to make lunch too.
She said, willingly taking on the responsibility of caring for our daughter. I'll contact Natalia, so don't worry, she said, leading him to believe I was informed. Under those circumstances, to my husband, it must have felt like a relief. But hearing the whole story, I felt a chill run down my spine.
Karen! Did she resist?
I couldn't help but ask. Being alone with Sophia, who was only kind in front of her father. I'm sure my 5-year-old daughter had her suspicions.
She was crying, wanting to go with Daddy. But, since Sophia was kind enough to come over, I told her not to be selfish. I never imagined something like this would happen.
The conversation with my husband ended awkwardly, and I hung up. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was immediately directed to the ICU. Karen had fallen from high playground equipment and hit her head, still unconscious. When the doctor said there's no danger to her life, but she might have lasting effects, I nearly collapsed from despair. If only I had contacted Hugo one more time this morning. If only I hadn't taken on that business trip. Despite knowing there was nothing I could do about it now, those thoughts kept swirling around in my head. How much time had passed? While I was standing there dazed, my husband arrived at the hospital, and it seemed he had also contacted Sophia.
Is Karen okay? Is she safe? Hey, is she all right?
Sophia, who appeared before us, was sobbing and worried about our daughter.
I just took my eyes off her for a moment to go to the bathroom. I told her I'd be right back.
Before we could say anything, she started making excuses.
But that's just an excuse, isn't it? It's my fault for not watching her properly. I'm really sorry.
After saying what she wanted to, Sophia just cried, leaving no room for us to blame her.
Why didn't you come to the hospital sooner? I got a call from Hugo, and you're only getting here now.
I struggled to keep my voice steady, trembling with anger.
I've been looking for Karen the whole time. The park was too big, and I couldn't find her.
Considering she had been searching the vast park, it was odd that her clothes weren't dirty, and even stranger that she didn't notice the commotion when the ambulance arrived. Honestly, my only thought was, how could she? But pointing that out now would only lead to her dodging the issue.
Hugo said he told you to contact me, didn't he? I haven't heard anything? Well, I thought, since you were busy with work, I didn't want to bother you.
Watching Sophia choke up her words and act as if she was afraid of me, my anger only grew.
Hey, calm down, Natalia. She's already feeling sorry, and it wasn't on purpose. Don't be too hard on Sophia.
My husband began to defend his sister, seemingly feeling pity for her. What? It's like I'm the bad guy here. I took a deep breath and simply said, okay. Thinking she had been forgiven, Sophia repeated I'm sorry, covered her face with her hands, and started to sob again. But I didn't miss it. The moment she brought her hands to her face, Sophia glanced at me and quietly smirked. After Sophia left, I confronted my husband.
Do you really believe what Sophia said? Do you truly think she was watching Karen properly?
What do you mean?
I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I saw it, for a moment she...
Calm down. Natalia, you're probably just tired. I know you want to blame someone, but Sophia didn't mean any harm. He was interrupted by the doctor coming out of the treatment room. Hearing your daughter has regained consciousness brought tears of relief to my eyes. Karen could speak, but her memory of the events leading up to and following the injury was hazy.
Karen, do you understand? It's Mom.
Mom. Where am I? My head hurts. This was supposed to be a fun day. Seeing my daughter lying in bed made me feel sorry for her all over again. You went to play with Sophia, but then you got hurt and came here. It's all okay now. Sophia. Is Sophia here? No, she's not here. Karen, what did you do today with her? I forgot. After that, she stopped talking, pulled the blanket over her head, and started to shiver. It was a gesture Karen always made when she was afraid of something. Is she afraid of Sophia? Did she do something to her? Because of her memory issues, my daughter was scheduled to stay in the hospital for a few days for tests. On the way home, I tried telling my husband, Karen seems to be afraid of Sophia, but he dismissed it the same way as before, saying I was overthinking it. If only there was some evidence, it might convince him to keep Karen away from Sophia. Without any belief from him, I needed evidence of Sophia's true nature to show my husband, for our daughter's sake. Later, I reached out to a junior from my college days. She was part of the same circle as Sophia back then and knew her well. She always had to be number one, a troublesome kid. Friends? As if she could have any. With a liar like that, the disdainful voice of my junior, clearly fed up, is something I won't forget anytime soon. From her, I got Sophia's social media account information. Furthermore, I checked the contents of the cell phone my daughter loves to use for kids. Lately, whenever we go out, Karen always carries this phone with her, capturing videos of the scenery and conversations with people she's with. It's become her latest craze. There might be evidence in here of Sophia treating my daughter coldly. That would be a rare find. That's what I thought, lightly. Until I saw the videos recorded on it. To put it bluntly, my suspicions were confirmed. But it wasn't just about exposing her true nature anymore. On the third day of my daughter's hospitalization. On a holiday morning, my husband and I visited his parents' house, and we arranged for them to go visit our daughter in the hospital with him. Using the excuse that it would be bothersome to go to the hospital in a large group, I stayed behind. In the living room, Sophia was leisurely sipping coffee. "Hello, Natalia. How's Karen since then?" "She's much better. She might be able to leave the hospital soon." "That's good to hear." Sophia, with her eyebrows furrowed in an exaggerated, theatrical voice, feigned relief. "What's good about it? Which mouth of yours is saying that?" As usual, Sophia plays the part of the good sister-in-law in front of the parents and my husband. I matched her act, putting on my best kind sister-in-law performance. "Well, we're off to the hospital then," said my husband as the three of them left the house, and both Sophia and I waved them off with a smile. Once it was just the two of us, as expected, Sophia's attitude changed completely. "What do you want? You didn't stay to make small talk, did you?" I faced her squarely, resting her cheek in her hand, clearly annoyed. "Could you apologize to Karen? And I want you to take responsibility for what happened this time." "Huh? What's that supposed to mean?" "It's your daughter who's at fault for not following instructions and acting on her own, isn't it? And you think you can keep up that lie forever?" I confronted Sophia with copies of her social media posts. They included a post saying, "Woke up early to make this for my boyfriend today," accompanied by a photo of Sophia happily sharing a lunchbox with a man. I also showed her all the posts from that day, detailing shopping and dinner outings. "This was the day you were supposed to be looking after Karen. You left her in the park to go on a date with your boyfriend." The story of her searching for my daughter all along was a fabrication, evidenced by these photos. As Sophia looked over each photo, her expression darkened for a moment before she scoffed and tossed the documents aside. "What's this supposed to prove? The date on a post can be changed with settings, you know?" Indeed, as Sophia said, the evidence might not be conclusive. People often deliberately change the timeline of their posts to prevent their personal information and private life from being fully exposed. "This boyfriend of yours, he's an old circle friend, isn't he? I heard from my junior." "Wow, you went out of your way to contact someone just to dig up dirt on me. You must be really bored." Sophia laughed mockingly at me, clearly showing no remorse. Such an attitude of belittlement. Whether the post date and the actual photo-taking day match, we can find out by checking with this guy through my junior. So what if I have a boyfriend and went to the park with him? What's wrong with that? So you admit to babysitting while on a date? Who I ask to help babysit is my business, isn't it? With that selfish remark, Sophia turned away. "So, in the end, you want to say it's Karen's fault for not following instructions, not yours at all?" Confirming that in my mind, I silently nodded. "Anyway, no matter what you say, my parents and brother won't believe you. So, you're planning to align your story with your boyfriend and erase the posts to cover it up? I suppose you would do that. No need for such tricks. It's obvious they'll believe me, a family member, over someone else like you." Sophia said this with a face full of conviction, sure of her victory. But her ability to maintain that attitude ended there. "I think they'll believe this," I said as I pulled out my cell phone and played one video. "What's this?" Upon hearing the audio from the video, Sophia's face, previously confident, turned to shock as she stared at the screen. What was shown was the truth of that day, recorded by my daughter. The video captured the surrounding scenery and, clearly, Sophia's voice berating my daughter repeatedly. "Stop fussing over flowers and hurry up. You're so slow," Sophia yelled. Then came Karen's trembling voice, "I'm sorry." Sophia also filled my daughter's head with insults about me and threatened her if she dared to talk back, "Shut up. If you talk back again, I'll leave you behind." The footage that followed only showed Karen's feet walking slowly, likely too scared to even look up at Sophia. After a while, the video showed Sophia rushing off to a man, laying out a leisure sheet and starting to eat without paying any mind to my daughter. When Karen tried to eat some side dishes, Sophia snapped, "Don't touch it, it's dirty. It wasn't made for you," pushing Karen's hand away. Then, as if she had an idea, Sophia smiled at Karen, "Hey, do you want to go back to your mom and dad?" Upon Karen's nod, Sophia suggested, "Let's play a game then. If you can get to the top of that playground equipment alone, I'll take you home," pointing to the park's largest playground structure. The video ended as Karen headed towards it. When my husband and I reviewed this footage yesterday, I couldn't count how many times I cried. After watching all the videos, Sophia was trembling, but soon she slammed the table forcefully and stood up.
What is this? Are you threatening me with a child's video? You're insane. You're trying to pin this on me and Hugo, making it seem like you knew Karen would get hurt. It's just your daughter who was stupid enough to fall for it.
In a fit of rage, Sophia snatched the cell phone from me and, unbelievably, smashed it against the wall. The screen shattered, and the internals were exposed, clearly beyond repair. With a face red with anger and breathing heavily, Sophia smirked.
Now you have no evidence. Serves you right.
Her expression was the epitome of evil. But to me, her attitude felt almost comforting. Yes, keep yelling. Show your true, vile nature even more. I was afraid my heart would be filled with darkness if I let my guard down. So, before that happened, I decided to stop her.
She admit to leaving Karen in danger knowingly, Hugo?
I said, pulling out a second cell phone from my pocket. Pressing the speaker button, the enraged voices of my in-laws and husband were heard.
Wait. Hugo, Dad, Mom. Why? I've had the phone on this whole time. They've been listening to everything. And you'll be paying for the phone you broke. It's mine, after all. But
what Sophia didn't know was that the video she saw was a copy. The original was safely with my husband.
There's no way I'd bring our daughter's important phone here. I suspected you might do something, but I didn't think you'd smash it. It was just a joke. I didn't think Karen would take it seriously. I never imagined she'd actually climb up there.
Sophia, now pale-faced, started making excuses, her voice a mix of apologies and attempts at manipulation.
Karen fell, and I was so scared. I couldn't do anything, and when the ambulance arrived, I just ran away. I'm sorry.
Tears filled her eyes as she meekly apologized, trying to elicit sympathy. Of course, no one was falling for it anymore. Realizing she had no way out, Sophia turned her anger towards me again.
Don't look at me like that. It's all your fault. You, your daughter, my brother, my parents, you took everything from me. Stop making ridiculous accusations. Shut up. Just because you're a little good at your job and had a kid, everyone fusses over you. It makes me sick. You and your daughter.
As Sophia started to lash out, I was at a loss for words. Just then, at that very moment, my in-laws, who had been waiting in the car, came into the room. Thanks to my father-in-law scolding Sophia, thankfully, no hands were laid on me. I've been given permission to do as I please with her. I decided to take them up on their offer.
I will be filing a police report,
I declared, and my in-laws agreed without hesitation. Seeing them nod without any reluctance, Sophia began to cry for real and clung to my feet.
Wait. I understand. I'll apologize. I'll apologize to Karen. Please don't report this to the police. Please.
Those pleading eyes, looking up at me, she must have been manipulating people like this since she was a child.
If you had admitted what you did from the start, I would have given you a chance to apologize.
I thought to myself, looking at her as if she were trash.
But now, I've lost that feeling. I will never forgive someone like you. You will face the full extent of the law.
I believe this was the only time I ever treated someone with such cold disdain. I simply looked down silently at my sister-in-law, kneeling and slumped over. My memory of what happened next is vague, and I don't quite remember how we left my husband's family home. Next thing I knew, I was with my husband in our daughter's hospital room.
Mom, what happened? Are you okay?
Karen's voice finally brought me some peace. We filed the police report that very day. As a result, Sophia was subjected to legal punishment. I had thought our chances were slim since Sophia hadn't directly harmed her, but the police said the videos my daughter took and the call records I had let my husband listen to were decisive. Thanks to that evidence, they could prove Sophia had maliciously put my daughter in danger, thinking it was okay if she got hurt. Though she wouldn't be behind bars for more than a year, for someone with her princess attitude, it must have been quite a shock. My in-laws decided to disown Sophia, sold their house, and moved away, ensuring she wouldn't have a family to return to after serving her sentence. Karen, fortunately, didn't suffer any notable aftereffects and was discharged from the hospital without issue.
Grandpa, Grandma, I want this pink one.
Next spring, Karen will start elementary school. Choosing a backpack with her grandparents, she's as lively as ever today.